idea what they were doing?
Yeah.
It's, you never know. They might have actually been there just to send a message and scare the crap out of everybody because they were incompetent. They actually accidentally hit some people.
Yeah.
That's true. That's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
You make a good point.
Because automatic weapons are harder to control. When they're fully automatic, they actually jump around. The heavier the bullets, so the more they do.
Mm-hmm. What's the joke? Stormtroopers shooting at a red shirt. The stormtrooper misses every single shot, and the red shirt dies anyways. Right? That's what this feels like a little bit.
Yeah.
I love it. Did you see that picture I posted on our Facebook a couple of weeks ago of the stormtrooper?
Yeah, I did.
Stormtrooper target practice. He's got a machine gun.
Oh, yeah.
He's checking the target. Yeah, that one.
Bob Marley was hit. He was shot in the left arm, and I've inconsistently seen that he also took one in the ribs.
That's what I heard too.
Now,
although when I saw an interview with him, he only points to his left arm.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: is you always hear about the one that went into his arm because they left the bullet there because, according to the story, he couldn't take it out without the possibility of nerve damage, which would then affect his playing. So he wasn't going to go for that.
Yeah.
But you also hear that he got hit in the chest, which I always thought was weird, and I could never corroborate until I was watching an interview with a woman whose name is Diane Jobson, and she was his lawyer, and she, in this interview, talked about it, and what happened, he got really lucky. The bullet that went into his arm first grazed across his chest.
Oh, geez.
So it grazed across his chest and burnt, he's got a flesh wound, and then it went into his arm.
Wow.
So again, super lucky. So his wife is quarter inch off, and he was a quarter inch away from having it take out at least one, if not more, ribs.
Yeah, maybe some liver, stuff like that.
Something like that. Yeah. I'm just talking about just that little bit. But so that's why you hear that he took one in the chest, but you never get the description. It's only because of that interview that I found that out.
Wow.
Yeah, good job.
So, as I said, these yo-yos, they shoot the place up, they shoot Bob, they shoot Rita, a couple other people are hurt, and then they run back to their car and they take off. And this is always pointed at as a very important thing, is that when the car left the property, it turned and went downhill, which means it went back down into Kingston. Hope Road, if you look at it on a map, if you follow it, it starts in basically the heart of Kingston and then works its way out and then goes across the island to a bay. I can't remember which bay it is. So people say, well, obviously it had to be this political party that was responsible because it went back into Kingston.
The
JLP.
Yeah.
But I thought the PNP controlled areas of Kingston too.
They did, but it's based on the fact that the JLP kind of was in control in that area is what people point to, because the reason people say is that if it'd gone the other way, it wouldn't have been such a easy thing to point at, is because you go the other direction and the road goes into the jungle before it goes across to that bay on the other side of the island. But what I always find weird is that if you look at Hope Road, there's a ton of streets that come off of it that then go to other places.
Yeah.
So it could have been that the best way to go home for these guys was to head towards downtown Kingston and then hang a right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced about the whole JLP thing either.
Yeah, but I just want people to understand that portion of it, because that's something that you're going to hear all the time. Now, nobody ever was officially arrested for this. I mean, everybody got medical treatment, everybody survived and went on about their business. But I was watching, and I know I sent you guys this interview. There's an interview with Bob Marley that basically gives the impression, at least I think, that he knew who they were. If not at the time, he found out who they were, because he's talking to a reporter, and the reporter says, "You never saw the gunman?" Bob says, "At that time, no." The reporter says, "But you know who did it?" "Yeah." "Were they caught?" "No, they weren't caught by the police."
You had the subtitles on, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, that
I
helps.
did.
Yeah, I did not have, and I couldn't understand the words. But,
yeah.
well, actually, I could understand a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, I know we talked about this before, but for our listeners, if you go and watch any of these interviews, need to understand that Jamaicans, you talk to all your fellow Jamaicans in, and you learn it at home. It's not a written language, but you're taught English in school. So your command of English is partially based on your motivation to learn it, as well as the capability of who's teaching you.
Yeah.
So Bob's English was a little rougher.
Actually, I don't think his English was so terrible. He's fluent in English.
Yeah.
It's just that his accent is so
really
thick,
that's what I mean.
you
Is
know?
that when
Yeah.
that's what I'm going for. Is when they're taught English, they're taught to get rid of that accent, and a lot of that was still in his English. So.
And I can imagine that there's a certain amount, and I have no actual basis for this. It's just a total stretch on my part, but I would imagine that there's some nationalism that goes along with that. If you're being taught a culture to emulate a culture in the way that you speak that you aren't necessarily very happy with, be it British or the United States, that you would want your accent to be clearly of your country.
Of your tradition.
Do you know what I'm?
Yeah. No, I know what
getting
you're
at?
saying.
Yeah.
In a way, I can see that. I can see your point there.
Yeah, a lot
Thanks.
A lot of it probably depends on what you do for a living too.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's probably totally fine for somebody like Bob Marley to have.
For most, most
really
people live
thick
in
accent.
Jamaica,
Doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, that is almost the end of our story here, because we do need to tell you that Bob Marley was a tough guy.
Yeah.
He went on to perform at the Jamaica Smile concert 2 days later. He, of course, gets on stage. I don't know, did you guys see the footage of this? He gets on stage, and he holds up his arm, and he shows the bandage, and then he takes off his shirt, and he shows where he's been, where the bullet graze is on his chest.
Of course he did.
Basically saying, I'm tough, you can't get me, go ahead and try.
I don't think I'd be saying something like that in Jamaica.
I don't think I would.
He was a ballsy dude.
I guess so.
He really was.
And I guess for those of our listeners that don't know about Bob Marley, he died of natural causes
It's cancer. 81.
81.
Yeah, 1981.
1981. Yep.
Just sad. I mean, he was young.
He was 36.
Really
Yeah.
young for cancer too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was the story with his cancer is really interesting.
Yeah.
Again, this is one of those things that I found where it's the legend versus the truth, because Bob Marley was a Rastafarian, and of course they don't, you don't do medical stuff.
That's an actual religion.
Yes, absolutely.
Dubs, yeah.
And the thing is that they said, well, Bob, we should cut your toe off. And according to the legend, because he was a Rasta, he said, no, this is the way that I came into the world. This is the way I'm going to go out of the world, and I'm not going to take this Western medicine. And so, of course, then the cancer spreads, and he dies.
He had toe cancer?
It started.
It was a malignant.
It was a malignant,
melanoma.
and it started in his toe, and then it went everywhere. But it turns out that's not exactly true. Bob did get medical treatment. He had chemo and things like that. So he really did try to fight.
He had his toenail in bed, which is where the biggest lesion was. He had that removed.
The nail bed, yeah.
But not his entire toe.
Right.
Because that would have gone against his religion.
Correct.
And he did, actively treat it, but
Well,
he did. But it's also true that he refused to get his toe amputated.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because he didn't follow up with his medical appointments in terms of getting his checkups until it was too late, nobody realized that they hadn't got it all.
Yeah.
But that's another story. Bob Marley's.
Damn it.
It's a very interesting story. But
It's a bummer.
it's absolutely.
Yeah.
And now it's everybody's favorite time of the show. It's time for theories.
That's right. Chupacabra.
All right. So we talked
It
enough.
would explain the aim, actually.
Yeah, it really would.
It would, because he's got the short little arms. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to pull the trigger and hang on.
Yeah.
This would explain it. No, the first theory actually is, as we briefly talked about already, is the CIA. It's believed that the JLP was backed by the CIA, and this is again according to local lore, and like we talked about, it's because of the fact that the Americans didn't like the fact that Manley was buddying up to Fidel Castro. The funny thing is, though, is that Manley was sort of making friends with a bunch of foreign leaders at the time.
I feel like that's what you do as a foreign
exactly
leader. Or as a world leader, I guess.
So he was developing relationships with Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. There's Olof Palme of Sweden,
Who is on the list?
is totally
Another
an unsolved mystery.
He's on the
Yeah.
list.
Pierre Trudeau of Canada,
Well, that's another mystery. Why did people ever elect him?
and then of course Fidel.
Yeah.
So he was meeting more than just Fidel Castro. I just want people to understand that. But
Also, like, you meet with people who are leading countries that are really close to yours, especially if they're semi-dangerous countries, just as pure diplomatic courtesy.
Yeah,
Right.
I think, you know,
as small nations, you want to know how your small nation is doing, so that I can figure out how to help my small nation.
Or
Yeah.
to make sure that we're friends so you don't suddenly decide you don't like us and, attack us.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that I don't think that the U.S. government would have gotten all that upset about him just having a meeting with Fidel.
Yeah,
It just kind of depends on how far he takes the whole thing.
it's very true.
Yeah.
But as we said, so the theory goes that the CIA came in, as we talked about before. They brought drugs, they brought guns, and they created this whole cadre of criminals to do their dirty work. And then, of course, that's why the cocaine trade was so big, and I don't know if it's so big anymore in Jamaica. I actually hadn't looked into that. Actually, I think it is.
It probably
Cocaine
is.
still pours through Jamaica, if I remember right.
You were just there. You would have...
You know,
He didn't store a
partake?
kilo?
I didn't see any cocaine. I saw a lot of weed being offered, but no cocaine. But I never knew who had the best. They all said they had the best, so it was really confusing.
It's that way everywhere.
Yeah, it is. But like Joe had said, is that this whole idea that the CIA was going to destabilize the country through these efforts, that's what this theory is based on. That's what it's saying.
Actually, CIA guys who went in there with guns and shot at Marley?
No, what it is that it's the CIA brought the guns in, trained the guys how to use the guns, and then said, hey, that guy over there, he's getting a little too much sway with the people. We should probably take care of him. And then had one of their dons or one of their groups set up and go try to do the hit.
Yeah.
That's where the whole thing is. So it wasn't CIA guys driving in, because nobody said it was a bunch of white dudes in the car, because that would have been a giant flag.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But, the problem I have with this, the whole thing about funneling guns and drugs into the country, they were funneling them to the JLP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, where did the PMP get their drugs and guns?
Fidel, of course.
Oh, yeah, right. I think they might have gotten those things on their own. I get it. The CIA does have a reputation for mucking around in local elections and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The thing about funneling drugs and guns into a nearby country is,
They're going to come back.
well, you can destabilize that country, and the last thing any of us want is a destabilized country right on our doorstep. Yeah. So it just seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's that theory. We're going to move on to the next one. The next theory is that the whole thing was done at the order of the JLP. Mm-hmm. Because remember...
Again, that was Ed Seeger, right?
Yeah, that was Sega.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I never know how to pronounce his name because it's different every time. It's the accent. But the theory is that because Bob Marley's Smile Jamaica concert was now considered kind of a PNP thing, the JLP wanted to retaliate.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's kind of a bummer because it feels like if Bob Marley had a good relationship with the political parties, that maybe you would just go to him, right, and be like, dude, what the hell?
Well, I think he had a relationship with both parties.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So you would think that, the leadership at that point would go and say, dude, what are you doing? And he would have been like, listen,
Totally happened
it's
behind
not my fault.
back.
I'm really sorry. Like, how can we work this out? They wouldn't just be like, Bob? Nah. We're going to shoot him.
And that's a very rational line of thought.
But it's wrong. Got it.
No, but I can't help but think about the fact that these are also men who are using gangs that control the cities to control the elections. So it's sometimes maybe not the best decision making happens.
All right, that's fair.
So I know where you're going with it,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, I kind of tend to doubt it was a JLP because since everybody was thinking that Marley was aligning himself with Manly, it's one way to send a nice message. Hey, mess with us, we'll kill you. But at the same time, Marley was very popular.
He was.
And killing him would have really been a black mark on your reputation. It would have made a lot of people in Jamaica angry.
Absolutely.
Unless you thought you could make it look like the other party did it.
Well, that's why my theory is that it was the PNP that did it. It was an attempted assassination. That's why they came in, pretty much missed, and then headed back down to Kingston. And so, making it look like it was the JLP and not the PNP.
It's possible. Yeah. We've got more theories to go.
Oh, boy.
We're not done yet. Okay, so the next theory is that it was just a bunch of random guys who were angry at Bob Marley for aligning with the PNP. This whole thing is so politically based.
Yeah, it really
in most of
is.
these theories, it's totally politically
Really
based.
political.
Because the thing is people didn't trust the government, and at the time there was the phrase, it wasn't politics, it was politricks.
Of course.
Love that. I love that. It's a great saying. So there's a lot of weirdness going on, and somebody might have said, I can't believe that you did this. We supported you. You're such a great guy. You've stabbed us all in the back. That's basically how this thing as a concept goes. Now there is a little bit of credence to it in terms of everybody kind of wondered if Bob Marley had sold him out. And the reason is there's a guy by the name of Neville Garrick. He was a Jamaican-born artist, and he worked with Bob Marley. And he's the one who created the graphic for the Smile Jamaica concert. What it is it's a set of illustrated mountains that have a little cartoon smile underneath them, and then a sun rising or setting, I don't know which it's supposed to be, but directly behind the mountains.
Yeah, with rays radiating out from it.
Correct. And rays radiating out from the sun is something that you see in the Caribbean all the time. It is. It's so you can see why that is an icon that you would put in there. Except the problem is the sun, the setting sun or rising sun, whichever you want to look at it, was one of the graphic symbols that was used by the PNP. And Jamaicans love stickers, and they love to put them on their cars. And so
that's how they hold their cars together.
Some of them. But he was wandering around trying to hand out these stickers, and people were like, I'm not putting that political sticker on my car. Are you freaking crazy?
Yeah,
I don't want to get shot.
Yeah, that sort of aided in the misunderstanding, I think.
Yeah. And then he realized that he had used something that was very, very similar.
Whoopsie.
So it's very possible that people felt betrayed, and this is an example of where people really took it that seriously, and they wouldn't even take the sticker for the concert because it was a political, what would you call it? It's not, it's a sign. I guess it really is. It's just a political symbol.
Logo.
Yeah. And so they didn't want to do it, and so it could have been just a couple of guys who felt betrayed and went in and tried to shoot it up, and of course had no idea what they were doing.
Sounds like not.
Because one of the things is when I was doing some of the research is at one point one of the gunmen, remember how I said it was kind of just a shoot and go, stuck his arm around the door through the door frame and was pulling the trigger, wasn't even looking. So this is how committed they were to getting somebody.
Yeah, sounds like not too much.
Yeah. And now we have one last theory for who may have done this, and this is the only one that we've got that actually points the finger at a specific person. There was a guy several years ago. His name is Christopher Dudas.
I don't know if it's Dudus or Dudus.
I don't know. It's D-U-D-U-S. Christopher, I'm going to call it Dudas. Christopher Dudas Koch, and he was a person of major interest for the United States because he was the head of the Shower Posse, it was a gang, and they were running coke and guns, and the U.S. wanted him because he was running coke and guns.
Yeah,
These are some bad names.
Coke?
No, just like...
Shower Posse?
Yeah.
That's
I know. Let's find like a really cool name for our gang.
I know. Yeah.
You know what would be really badass? Oh.
Shower Posse.
Shower Posse.
Shampoo Posse.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a shower of bullets?
That is
No
what
tears.
It is. Yeah.
The No Tears posse.
Yeah.
Ah.
Okay, well, here's the thing, is that this guy, the cops, by the way, did eventually, the U.S. did get him. Or actually, no, the U.S. didn't get him. He was delivered to the U.S. by the Jamaicans. But
Who, by the way, did so very reluctantly. It took quite a long time to get.
yeah, they
get
didn't
them
really want to
turn
give him
over.
up.
No, they didn't.
They really kind of wanted to string him up on their own. But his father in the 70s and 80s